We are now nearing the end of our summit. We have a couple more sessions to go. This next session, however, is quite interesting. We have the V20 Sherpas perspective, specifically from Saudi Arabia, Italy, and Indonesia. We have Dr. Ghazi bin Zagr, the V20 2020 Sherpa. We have Marco Perduca, the V20 21 Sherpa. We have Alyssa Wahid and Professor Makarim Wibisono, who are the V20 2022 co-Sherpas. And this session will be facilitated by Dr. Krzysztof Dębek.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Krzysztof Dębek. I'm a founding member of V20, and this year I have had a pleasure to work as the Content Working Group Supervisor. In this session, I'd like to take you on a journey of looking at the V20 story through the experience of our Sherpas. And thank you very much to all the Sherpas of the V20. And let's take it from the very beginning, without further ado. Dr. Ghazi, you played a pivotal role in getting V20 off the ground. Could you share with us what it meant for you and what it felt like to be the first Sherpa of a new engagement group?
Thank you very much. First, I'm really honored to be here in Rome and in person. It's such a wonderful time of hope that soon things will be restored and more human interaction can resume. It's been an incredible journey, and I emphasize the word journey because values by necessity must be about a journey. The challenge with a subject like values is the question of how does one talk about the oxygen in the room, for example. You cannot see oxygen, and yet without it we cannot breathe and we cannot exist. And the very subject of the very matter we are talking about is of such a nature. So to anchor it, one has to anchor it on something real and practical and pragmatic, so that the very essence of what makes our humanity deep can be allowed to become a subject of discussion that is legitimate, to be made central to central organizations that determine the human condition. And that required that we, in some ways, connect with the history of the G20. So as all of us know, it started as a smaller group of companies. And it was centered on the issue of salvaging the global condition after a financial crisis. And it's very, very typical in the way as humans that we deal with matters, that they become important to us when suddenly something at a deep scale is not going well. And that no matter what we try to do in conventional ways, don't work. So in attempting to solve the global crisis with the financial condition, we realized that unless we widened the subject to make it about economic prosperity, economic wellness, we wouldn't be able to deal with the symptom. And it was only a matter of time that we realized that even at that scale, we would have to approach it from a variety of angles, which explains why over time, more and more groups have become official, to engage us in dimensions that become necessary if we would to be able to have an impact that is meaningful to the human condition. And if you take that logic forward, it's only a matter of time that we get to the deeper question of why not then include what drives human behavior at a deeper level and expand from the economic condition to the socio-economic condition, and then be holistic in the way in which we would attempt to address this matter. So the challenge in a group like the V20 is making a framework that must be addressed a certain way, a center subject of conversation to a lot of people that speak different languages. And here's the question of diversity that occupies a Sherpa, of how over time you would build an engagement between groups of people that may talk to each other, but not at the level of depth that can lead to a deeper understanding and therefore a better resolution of some of the human dilemmas. I'll give you examples. For the V20 to succeed, you had to bring scholars who are passionate about the subject of values with practitioners that are part of a variety of activities in the globe, such as education and health, that is intimately related to values, but values is not the centerpiece of what they talk about in delivering the results that they have to deliver. And if there's the ambition that over time this group is to become an official group, then clearly the conversation also must bring the policymaker to the table. So the Sherpa here in the journey is concerned about the oxygen in the room that we don't talk about, yet without we cannot breathe, the people in the room and who's missing from the room, and how over time we will build an interest so that they want to join us inside of the room, and the quality of conversation between them, and the ability not to have the rules of the game of one group dominating at the expense of the other. Rightfully, at year one, the central theme of the value of values was exactly what we needed so that the very concept becomes center stage and a center of our conversation. I can't help but be reminded of the feeling I felt today being in Rome for the first time in my life and meeting people that I engaged with over the last 2 years over platforms and over technology, to see them for the first time in a city that I see for the first time and feel a sense of glow. And I deliberately use this word because it's in such words that have a spiritual connotation, that have deep meaning, that moves the human condition, that somehow we must thrive to make it a subject of policy making, measured by hard data, supported by evidence, to be able to realize impact that people will be willing to finance and pay for. It's in these delicate balances that I feel a Sherpa thrives, and I think I'm eager to hear how we moved from that into values in action to further explain where the journey is went, or how it went from there onward. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great and deep insight as always, Dr. Ghazi. And I hope we can all meet in person in Indonesia. So it's great that at least part of us can be there in Rome in person this year. So let's move on to this year then. Marco, and how has your Sherpa experience been this year? Were there any special highlights, moments, or challenges you would like to tell us about?
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dr. Ghazi. I will never be able to be as poetic as you have been about the work of a Sherpa, despite the fact that I agree with you that not only we need air in a room to breathe, but we also need to try and look through some of the problems that we have encountered in trying to lead a group they're engaging governments in a moment in which you cannot talk to people in person, you cannot meet people in person, and you have to move from the Zoom diplomacy to the WhatsApp diplomacy, which is even faster and more complicated to manage, especially if you have to write in different languages at the same time. I think this, in fact, at least for me, has been one of the biggest problems. I've been involved for 15 years in lobbying UN delegates in Geneva, New York, and Vienna, so you have to talk to them. Unfortunately, you have to drink a lot of bad coffee when you talk to diplomats, and for an Italian is one of the biggest problem we have to face when we go around the world. And I've been a member of parliament for 5 years. And you can convince your colleagues, again, and in this case we're lucky because the coffee is good, so you have to drink a lot of coffee and talk to people in person, because as much as we cherish technology, and it has saved us for the last 2 years in being in touch from all over the world, and I'm also very happy to have people coming from all continents and see Rome, which at some point was the heart of civilization. Today is a little run down, but that's a different story that we can talk about with our U20 friends next time. I think the lack of human touch, I think, has been problematic to a certain extent, but we've been very lucky in having the Italian government respond on WhatsApp, almost as we always do, right in the moment in which you contacted them. And I think we've been able to engage the previous government and this government, because on top of having this non-personal feeling, we also had to go through a change of government, which is not necessarily the best way to establish contacts and keep them living. The other, I think, because we were new to the game, and Marisa and Stefan have been very patient in guiding me, and also through you and Dima, from acquiring a knowledge about what the V20 was and how it wanted to not only continue doing what they had been doing for the last year, but also to try and expand contacts, also reaching out to other engagement groups. I think the other aspect that I think perhaps we haven't developed enough is the relationship with the other engagement groups. And we heard today that there are a lot of overarching topics. There is a lot of need to try and complement each other. And I think at a distance we have tried not to duplicate what they've done. But this would be something that if we were to start tomorrow again, I would try and do as early as possible, because you learn also from the experience of other people that have similar backgrounds but completely different viewpoints sometimes, and also different kind of relations. So these two, the lack of personal touch, so to speak, and perhaps not involving colleagues also from other engagement groups, and being a problem. Then I think there's also the positive aspect, which is keep on learning from people coming from different walks of life, different traditions, different cultures, different languages, and different continents, with viewpoints and a lot of poetry, we heard, that can always give you that extra bit that you would need in trying to come up with completely different conclusions. I mean, I have addressed my work as a Sherpa as if I were a politician to which we were supposed to suggest things. And so my ears have been, if you want, the filter through which we have tried to work. But in the end, I think our 16 pages of final communique include the poetry and also the political aspect. And so, as you were saying, the need to balance, I think, was one that has been our guiding light throughout these months, and I hope that we will be able to share with our Indonesian colleagues all the experience after the endover today, and also when they will organize themselves, because there are a lot of lessons to be learned, hoping that at some point, as Chris has said, we will be able to meet all in person in Indonesia, which I think has nothing to envy to Rome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insight, Marco. And now, moving on to the next year, Ibu Alisa and Professor Makarim, you are the incoming Sherpas, and you will help us take V20 into the future. I'm sure everyone is eager to get to know you. Could you please tell us a few words about you and share with us the reason or reasons why you have accepted this role?
Can I ask Professor Makarim as my senior to proceed?
Ladies first.
Okay. Thank you, but I would prefer for you to go first. But anyway, Mr. Dembek and all of the ladies and gentlemen here in the forum. I'm Alisa Wahid from Indonesia, of course, who is being nominated as the Sherpa for the next V20. And a little bit about me. I'm a trained family psychologist. I'm also currently working on democracy, human rights, and multiculturalism, and interfaith cooperations. I come from a tradition of Islamic traditional communities, actually, in Indonesia, from Nahdlatul Ulama. This is the biggest Muslim organization probably in the world, because by the latest survey, we have approximately 80 million members. 80 million members. And I serve as the General Secretary for the Family Welfare Agency. Apart from that, I work in many initiatives in Indonesia. I also serve, I am appointed as a SDGs ambassador by the government of Indonesia up to the end of this year. All my work entails on strengthening values in society, because I've been taught that putting values as the center of our lives and our work is the most certain way that we are able to promote and establish maslahah. What is maslahah in English? The welfare and well-being of the whole world and civilizations. But putting others instead of principles and values would lead to problems and challenges. Putting economic welfare without principles would lead to problems. Putting extractive industries and economic gains instead of principles of taking care of the earth, balance of living with the earth, will lead to problems, ecological problems, and putting the interest of our own groups would lead to social divides, problems that we share with other groups. So I always believe that the way to go is putting principles and values as the centers of our lives or of our policies, of our civilizations. And without doing this, we would lose the future. And we always know my professor, Professor Otto Scharmer for MIT, he said that if we want to change the system, first we need to help the system see itself. And if we want to change the system, we have to change the paradigms, the mental models, the beliefs, the claims to truth that the actors of the system is having and is operating on. Without a change of paradigms, without going deeper into our spiritual center, we will be just employing different games, different strategies, but coming back to the same challenges, unless we are willing to change our operations into a value-based operations of our civilizations, of our communities, or of our families, of our economics, or of our political systems, then we will lead to human destruction. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great depth. And indeed, we do need to change paradigms to move in the right direction. It is a big challenge to make the system see itself indeed. Thank you for that. Professor Makarim.
Yes, my time mostly in the diplomatic life. Yeah? I was posted in New York for 3 times. Yeah. I was ambassador of Indonesia to New York. While I was ambassador of Indonesia to New York, I was choice. Yeah, I was selected to be the president of Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. Yeah. At that time also, I was chosen as a chairman of the Group 77, composed of 124 countries. So I was spokesman of the 124 countries. So at that period of time, I got such kind like a very interesting time, because at that period of time, mostly United Nations focused on the issue of security and politics. At the time, I encouraged also to pay attention on the issues of non-political and security. So I suggest to focus on ICT, information communication technology for development. So I asked them, or I asked my colleagues in Ecosoft to try to put emphasis on the need of the ICT for development. So I was also posted in Geneva, in Geneva, as ambassador of Indonesia to Geneva. So when I was ambassador of Indonesia to Geneva, I was elected as a chairman of the United Nations Commission of Human Rights. So I was the first non-Caucasian as the chairman of the Commission of Human Rights. I also was the special rapporteur of the United Nations on Palestine. Yeah, so I spent time for 2 years, but Israel didn't give me allowance to enter the territory of Palestine. And then I right away said that there is no purpose for me to be UN Special Rapporteur if I don't go to see the place. Yeah. So I resigned as the UN Special Rapporteur of the United Nations. So I'm very glad to be invited by my friend to be a co-Sherpa with Ms. Alisa White. Ms. Alisa White was the daughter of my President Abdul Wahid. Yeah? I accompanied President Abdul Wahid for quite some time in New York, in Cuba. Yeah? So, in many times. So, therefore, I'm very pleased to be able to work together with her. And then, to be honest, I will express appreciation for the Italian leadership for 1 year. And then we are interested to see that Indonesia can continue to build up efforts based on the achievement taken by Italy. And then we would like to put emphasis on how can we make balance between the two values that are contradictory in nature. Yeah. So in many issues, in critical issues, one people are inclined to go to the one values and the other inclined to go to the other. So it is incumbent upon us, how can we go to middle ground bridge that engage everybody to see common and beneficial objective for Indonesian people, for international people. So I think this is my introduction, and I'm stand ready to work together with Marco, with Chris, with other previous Sherpa, and then let's make the G20 actually meaningful. Because to be honest, now United Nations has lost its credibility. Yeah, we have Syria issues that cost 600,000 people killed, but United Nations can do nothing. Yeah, we can have such kind of like what happens in Myanmar. Yeah, more than 600 people move in a very short period of time from Rakhine State, but United Nations can do nothing. Why it happened? Because there is a loss of trust among the key members of the United Nations. So I hope we can build like confidence building message in G20, and let's work together to address the common issue. Thank you, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Makarim, for this great insights, and thank you, Ibu Elisa. I would love to keep that conversation going, but I think we are at the time and have to cut. So I would like to thank you all the Sherpas. I would like to thank you, Dr. Ghazi and Marco, for taking us up to this moment, and I really am very honored to be a part of this and be in such a great company. And I see we have a really great future for next year in the fantastic leadership of our Indonesian team with our two incoming co-Sherpas, Professor Makarim and Ibu Elisa. Thank you very much, everyone. And I hope we can meet in person in
In Jakarta.